Most of us have been wounded in one way or another over the past 6 months. Whether it be the pain of isolation, the massive death toll caused by the COVID pandemic, the death of loved ones without being able to grieve for their loss in healthy ways, the inability to come together with family and friends, the disillusionment with our political system, the loss of trust in the security of our democracy, the realization that perhaps the world we thought we lived in was never really what we thought it was. The undercurrent of racism, white privilege, and injustice that have fed violence and distrust in our society, the lack of morals and bad behavior that is modeled in the way people treat one another. All these are wounding and breaking open wounds that have been present for a long time. I have to confess that I have always tried to avoid pain and suffering as much as possible. As parents, we teach our children to stay safe and not do things that will hurt them. We think this is a way that we can protect them from the dangers of our world. Yet if we pay close attention to the message of Christianity and the foolishness of the cross, as Paul says, we often find ourselves in a tragic place at the foot of the cross. In Jesus, God is pushing us to become discontent with the way things are going in the world. I think it's part of our human nature that unless the present falls apart, we will never move to look for something different, something more. The gospel shows that this is a necessary journey for us, and in some way, suffering is always a part of it. In college, I was a student of ancient languages and Greek and Roman culture and mythology. In our devotion from Richard Rohr last week, he talked about the idea of a sacred wound. In mythology, the would-be hero is always wounded. That wound is part of the growth process. When we refuse to recognize and suffer the wounds that are already there, and refuse to let things fall apart, there is no growth. Allowing these always unjust wounds to become sacred wounds is another way of talking about salvation. And perhaps there's no other way to know this, because by trying to be unwounded, we are refusing to recognize and suffer the wounds that are already there. When we see our wounding as part of the way God is transforming all things, and trust that God is right there in the suffering, then our ordinary life journey becomes itself our journey with God, no matter how painful it might be. And that is where I seem to find myself today.